Hey, what's going on YouTube? My name is David, and in this video I'm going to show you how to build a very high-end custom water-cooled PC so you can play games like Battlefield 4 at their highest settings or even Crysis 3 across 3 screens. Even though I have Enthusiast components in this build, if you have more mainstream components planned for your build, you should still be able to follow along and learn how to build a PC step by step. Now, I have 3 major pieces of advice on how to get the most out of your PC building experience and how to get the most out of this video. The first piece of advice is to not make this video the only video you watch on how to build a PC. The truth of the matter is, if you give 20 people $2,000 to build the best PC they possibly can, you're going to get 20 vastly different PC configurations built using vastly different methods. Different people will have different opinions and different rationales on how to do things. When it comes to PC building methods, there is no one end-all be-all. You could rationalize design choices in many different ways, and it's valuable to see another perspective. One YouTuber that I highly recommend is Linus Sebastian from Linus Tech Tips. He and I have very contrasting styles in the way we do our build guides. He likes to talk a lot about why he's doing the things that he's doing and what are the direct benefits here and now within the video, so he'll go a little bit more in depth. For me, I like to go very straight to the point and tell you exactly what you need to know step by step. So, everybody has their own way of doing things when it comes to PC building. A lot of times there really isn't a right or wrong depending on how well you defend your argument. So that's tip number 1, is to look at a wide variety of sources for your PC building guide. My second piece of advice on how to get the best out of your PC building experience is to not be afraid to consult your manual. Nobody, no matter how experienced you are, is above consulting a manual. Even Linus has messed up on camera before because he didn't consult a manual. My third and final piece of advice on how you can get the most out of your PC building experience and the most out of this video is to watch everything all the way through first without diving into building directly. Then, once you have all the information while you are still in a frame of mind to solely receive information without having the burden of doing, then you can use this video as a step-by-step guide. I hope this introduction was helpful. Without further ado, let's start building your PC.
To build a PC, you need a central processing unit, which is referred to as the CPU. If the CPU is the central nervous system, then your motherboard handles computer functions like your peripheral nervous system handles autonomic body functions. The CPU needs a cooling solution. In this build, we are using a custom water cooling loop made of many components. To look at each of the components, click on the video in video. The graphical processing unit, or GPU, drives your displays, and the graphics card refers to the GPU, cooler, video memory, and circuit board. Random access memory, or RAM, allows your computer to quickly access temporary data. We have to use a drive to store and boot the operating system, like the solid-state disk, and we can add a mechanical drive for large files. The power supply is very self-explanatory. Finally, we need a case to store everything. Once you have all of your components, you can start building the PC. Unbox your motherboard and set aside all the extra cables and the I/O shield. Remove it from the anti-static bag and set it atop the motherboard box. This will be our starting work area. Unbox your processor so that it's in its plastic case and ready to go. After removing the CPU from its plastic case, be sure only to handle it by its sides and to not touch the pins on the back. Prepare your CPU for installation by lifting up the arms holding down the motherboard socket cover. Press down and move them off to the side and the arms will lift straight up. Then, lift the lid of the socket so the pins are exposed. Then, locate the small gold triangle on the corner of your CPU. As you're inserting your CPU, make sure this corner is aligned with the corner of the socket that also has a triangle. Drop your CPU into the socket gently. You don't need to apply any force during the insertion. Next, remove the plastic socket cover. Lower the lid on top of your CPU. To hold the lid into place, first press firmly down on the arm that looks like an EKG and move it under the clip that was holding it when you first lifted it up. It will take a lot more force than when you initially lifted the arm. Then, lower the arm shaped like a J and secure it under its clip. Any PC builder that says installing a CPU is not nerve-wracking is a dirty liar. Now, we need to apply thermal paste to fill in the air bubbles between the CPU and its heatsink. Don't go overboard with applying thermal paste. Remember, you are building a computer and are not Lady Gaga applying makeup. The 4930K is a lot larger than Intel's quad-core CPUs, so instead of applying the paste in a line or a pea-sized amount, I will use an X pattern to allow contact between the heatsink and the CPU to spread the paste. After applying thermal paste, we can mount the CPU water block. Position each of the 4 screws over a corresponding hole on the motherboard socket. Then, tighten each screw to secure the water block over the CPU. The screws only need to be hand tight. At this point, I like to prepare my case by removing all the top, front and side panels, getting cables out of the way, and removing any unneeded fans. If your motherboard standoffs are not already installed, screw them into the correct holes relative to your motherboard size. There should be a key inside your case or in your manual if you're unsure where to put the standoffs. Locate your I/O shield with the rest of your motherboard accessories. Snap the I/O shield into place with the ports oriented to align with the motherboard ports. Handling your motherboard by its sides, position the 9 holes located at the edges and the middle of your motherboard over the standoffs in your case, and align the I/O ports with the I/O shield. Located with your case accessories are the motherboard screws. Consult your manual if you're unsure which ones to use. Using a screwdriver, screw your motherboard into the standoffs. Be careful not to tighten too tightly, otherwise you may crack your board. Now for the most difficult part, installing RAM. I'm a bit old-fashioned and haven't started downloading my RAM, so I still like installing RAM as hardware. Look to see how the pins on your RAM stick can fit into the RAM lane, and press down until you feel it click back. Don't worry if your motherboard flexes a bit. Now is a good time to mount your power supply. Mount it with your fan down so the fan isn't drawing the hot air from your case into the power supply. Screw the power supply into place with thumb screws that you can find with your case accessories. It's time to begin assembling the water cooling loop. Screw your compression fitting nozzles into both the pump and the reservoir. If you haven't already installed your pump inside your reservoir, click on the video to see how to do it. Also screw the nozzles onto your radiators, preferably before mounting them. Mount your radiators into your case wherever it makes the most sense. Secure the radiator into place by screwing the fans into the radiator through the top of the case. Think about your finished build and how best to direct airflow. You generally want more intake than exhaust. I used the fans on my top radiator to pull air out of the case. I didn't have room anywhere else to mount my triple radiator, so I mounted it through a fan hinge in my case. Remove the hinge first, then secure the radiator to the hinge by screwing the fan into the radiator through the hinge and attach other fans to the radiator, then reattach the hinge. Connect the tubing to make a complete circuit that goes from your pump to the water block, then the radiators, and finally back to your reservoir. The order in which your water flows to each component of your loop doesn't matter. The order should be in whichever way allows you to have the shortest tubing runs. Cut your tubing as sharply as possible. Have the compression fittings on the end of the tube before you attach it to the nozzle. Fasten the compression fittings by screwing them into the nozzles, and fasten the hose clamps around the barbs on the water block by tightening them with a flathead screwdriver. Place a funnel into the fill port of your reservoir, then pour water into the reservoir until it is almost full. Connect your power supply Molex cable to the power cable on your reservoir, and use a jumper to connect your motherboard main power cable so it can turn on just the pump. You can also use a paper clip to bridge the green wire to the black wire if you don't have a jumper. Turn on the power supply and let the pump run until the reservoir is about half full. Never let your pump run dry, otherwise it will be destroyed within seconds, and this is not covered under warranty. Continue this cycle until your cooling loop is completely filled with water and you don't have to pour water into the funnel to feed the pump. During leak testing, it is a good idea to perform cable management. Locate the cables from your front panel and plug them into your motherboard where they need to go. These include the USB 2.0 cables, USB 3.0 cables, the HD audio cable, and the power and reset switches. Don't worry if you have positive or negative correct when connecting the power switch. Polarity doesn't matter. The cables and corresponding motherboard connectors are labeled, but you can double check the locations on your manual if you are unsure. After completing the leak test, locate the other cables you will need to connect your power supply to your components. You should have already connected your motherboard main power cable when turning on your pump. Locate the 8-pin CPU cable, connect the end, labeled connected power supply, into the power supply, and connect the 8-pin cable to the connector located at the top left of your motherboard. PCIe cables connect your graphics cards. Plug these into your power supply and route the ends that go into your graphics cards around the back of the case. SATA power connects to your SSD, hard drive, optical drives, and for my case, lighting control. Screw your SSD into the drive bay carriage using screws found with the rest of your case screws. A hard drive is easier to mount. Just align the holes along the sides with the rubber mounts in the carriage. If you are using an optical drive in your build, you connect it the same way as you would an SSD or a hard drive, the only difference being you install it in a front 5¼ inch bay. Connect your SATA power cable to the data drives and connect your SATA 6GB per second cables to the corresponding Intel 6GB per second cables on the side of your motherboard. Double check your manual if you're unsure which SATA connectors to use. Now, we are ready for the second most anticipated step in building your PC, installing your graphics card. Most people's graphics cards are the most expensive part of their PC, so this is a proud moment. Remove the graphics card's I/O cover. Slide the graphics card into the PCIe lane, just like you did with the RAM, and press down until you feel a click back. Use the thumb screw that was holding down the I/O cover to secure your graphics cards into place. Connect the 6-pin and the 8-pin power cable into the power connectors on your graphics card. We will only install one card for now. We can install the second card and connect the SLI bridge once we have installed the operating system. Finally, all of your hard work has come to the most anticipated moment of building a PC, booting up for the first time. Before hitting the power button, double check to make sure you have followed all of the steps in the video. Double check your motherboard manual for any possible quirky requirements before booting, such as only using specific RAM slots. Connect your graphics card to your monitor using either DVI or HDMI and hit the power button. Your computer should show the BIOS screen. If not, look at the code on the debug LED, match the code to the one in your manual, and make the necessary adjustments. At this point, your computer will ask you to hit the any key. If your keyboard doesn't have an any key, return it and buy a new one. Otherwise, you will never finish your build. In the BIOS screen, use your keyboard or mouse to navigate to the boot menu and reset the boot order so that your computer will boot into whichever storage media has your clean operating system, whether it's a USB thumb drive or the CD in your optical drive. Restart your computer to boot into the operating system, or you can just force a manual boot. Follow the instructions to install your operating system. You will be at the Windows desktop before you know it. Exhale, you just built a gaming PC. Thank you very much for watching this video. I have no doubt in my mind that you had a lot of fun building your PC. If you have any questions, ask them in the comments section below. Be sure to subscribe to my channel for more PC gaming videos. My name's David, and I'll see you next video.